A complete overhaul of the water industry, including scrapping regulator Ofwat and greater consumer protection, are just some of the 88 recommendations included in a major review which has been published this morning.
But campaigners are concerned the government has lost control of the industry, with Feargal Sharkey telling us he believes the Environment Secretary, Steve Reid, should resign.
The Labour government has 14 years to look at this. It's been a major public issue for at least 12 of those years, and he should have had a plan and coordinate and be able to walk into the office on July the 5th and take control of this industry and bring it to heel. What we're seeing today and what's gone on over the weekend, it's quite clear they've got no grasp of it at all.
Well, Water and Flooding Minister Emma Hardy joins us now. Feargal Sharkey not calling for your resignation, but the day's yet young, Emma. The main problem he seems to have with this report, and other campaigners too, is that Sir John Cunliffe, he says, was specifically prevented by the government, by Steve Reid, from looking at the internal structure of our whole water industry, how it's funded, company profit. He hasn't drilled into that. So what you're left with, he believes, are just superficial changes that will not make a difference.
Hi, Kate. Hi, thanks for having me on. I think fundamentally the system is broken, and that's something everyone can agree on. So whether you're a campaigner, whether you're a parent, whoever you are, you understand the water system doesn't work. And we see it doesn't work because we see record levels of pollution and we see soaring customer bills. Now, today's report is part 3 of a process we've already taken from the moment that we came into office. So part 1 was about resetting the industry, restoring accountability. So we introduced the bonus ban, we introduced criminal liability. Part 2 was about rebuilding. So we got a record amount of money, £104 billion going into this industry over the next 5 years to literally rebuild it, literally rebuild the pipes, upgrade the water treatment works, upgrade the sewage treatment works. And today what we're calling for is a revolution in the sector, because he's right, tinkering around the edges isn't going to change the fundamental problems that we have. We need root and branch reform, which is why I'm very, very grateful to Sir John for his report, and I pay tribute to the huge amount of work that he's put into this. But you're right to say that we ruled out nationalisation, and we were honest, Kate. We were honest from the very beginning that that wasn't going to be part of the agenda. And the reason why is quite simple, because at the end of my time as a minister, I will be judged on whether I have reduced the amount of pollution going into our rivers, lakes or seas. That's what people will judge me on. They'll look at the situation now and they'll say, Emma, have you improved it? Now, if we were to go down the nationalisation route, which we're not, and we've been honest and upfront and said that from day one, what we would see immediately is private investors withdraw their money, because no private investor is going to put their money into a system if they think they're going to take the company off them. I mean, that's quite obvious. So we wouldn't have the money in which to upgrade and rebuild all of our broken infrastructure. And the second thing that would happen, because these investors would be saying, hang on a minute, we're going to lose out here, it would be locked in a legal battle. So at the end of the 4 years, if I came on your show and you said, what have you achieved? I'd say, well, nothing. Because actually the crumbling infrastructure is even more crumbling than it was when I came in, because we've got no money to fix it. And what I have achieved is giving lots and lots of money to lawyers to fight it out over ownership rights. Now, to me, that isn't the right way of doing things. I'm a pragmatic politician. I look at the best way to achieve what I want to achieve. I want to achieve reduced levels of pollution. I want to make sure we've got enough water that we need for all the growth that we need in our country. I also want to make our country resilient to drought. That's what I'm trying to achieve. And I believe getting that £104 billion of private investment in is the best way and the quickest way in which to achieve that.
Very, very clear answer, particularly to the nationalisation. Can I drill into a little bit of the detail here? I think the rebuilding of trust comes from a sense of you not having the power. So, for instance, you mentioned the capping on bonuses. People thought that was very sensible. And then we saw at the end of last week that Southern Water got round that by having no bonus, but doubling the salary. So how are you going to actually execute some of these changes? Do you have the power to do that? And illegally, it looks like you do already. So what's going to change from now?
Well, in terms of do we have the powers at this moment to do everything that we'd want to do, the answer is no, we don't. We need to change the law. So as well as when we bring forward the white paper to respond to the 88 recommendations that Sir John's made, we're looking at bringing forward new legislation. So we are going to have to change the law, and we are looking at changing the law and giving the government new powers. So do we have the powers to do everything we'd want to at this moment? No. Are we going to? Yes, we are. And when it comes to salaries, I mean, I'm going to be straight with you about this. No government is going to set what private companies should pay or should not pay a member of staff. But my message to the water industry is I go around and I talk to them, and I talk to them all, and they tell me all that they want to rebuild trust with the general public, that they want to rebuild their reputation. So my message is read the room. You know, there's a huge amount of fury out there.
Are they listing those? Sorry to interrupt you, Emma, because the point is that these companies have been paying huge bonuses and huge salaries whilst polluting our rivers and not tackling the investment that's needed. So I think people need to see that you've got teeth to make that happen.
Absolutely, and that's why we introduced the Water Special Measures Act, which banned the bonuses. And we've seen many companies this time not being able to take their bonuses because we've banned them. And as well, we've introduced criminal liability. And the other thing that we've done as well is increase the number of investigations into water companies. We've increased the money to the Environment Agency by 64%, and that money doesn't come from taxpayers to pay for it. That comes from the polluter pays principle. So the money that the Environment Agency gets is they get the money back from charging the water company for the investigation. So that's a 64% increase in money for the Environment Agency. Next year, the EA are going to do 10,000 water inspections. That's the largest number of water inspections they've ever done. And as I say, at the moment, they're undergoing 81 criminal investigations. So as well as banning bonuses, as well as introducing criminal liability, we're also giving power to the Environment Agency to literally go out there and actually on the ground see what's happening, and in fining if necessary. And one of the other things in the Water Special Measures Act is something called the automatic fines. Now, I compare this to a driving fine. You know, if you go speeding, which I'm sure nobody does, but if you ever get caught speeding, you get an automatic penalty. Now, we've introduced automatic fixed penalties through the Water Special Measures Act. And the reason why is that we believe, and I believe, that some of the low-level non-adherence to the rules, they were getting away with it. So we've introduced an automatic penalty system so that if they trigger that automatic penalty system, they will be automatically fined. And that's freed up the Environment Agency to focus on interrogating and investigating more serious things. So we've really boosted that level of accountability. But as I say, that was all part of stage one. What we're looking at now is the revolution, is fundamental reset. Sorry, Ed.
The problem is, Emma Hardy, we heard Feargal Sharkey's frustration earlier. You've explained you don't want to renationalise these companies, but this lengthy report today says, in terms, that since privatisation under Labour and Conservative governments, they say that £85 billion has been extracted from the English water system by shareholders in these companies. And you're not going to get any of that £85 billion back.
Well, it's outrageous, the system that we've had. And as I said, Ed, the system's broken. The regulation system hasn't worked, and it's completely outrageous. I mean, I'm cross about it. Everyone's furious about it. And that's why we fundamentally need to change the system. That's why we're talking about a revolution in the whole way the system's governed, because that shouldn't be...
Any money back from the companies?
That shouldn't be allowed to happen. I mean, I can't change what's happened under previous governments. I mean, you know that, your viewers will know that. You know, we can't change what's happened in the past. What I can say is, from us being elected in July last year, we've already introduced fundamental change. As I said, we've already had the Water Special Measures. That already doubled compensation for people suffering from supply outages, people suffering from sewage. We've already introduced more powers and more money to the Environment Agency for them to be able to carry out their work. We're already looking at banning wet wipes as well.
The thing Feargal Sharkey said to us was last week, you said you wanted bonuses to be controlled. So a chief executive sees their pay, their basic pay, doubled to compensate for the lack of bonuses. You've been in government for a year. They are still taking the government for fools, these water companies. That's what he says.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Feargal. I mean, I think he's an incredible musician. I loved his band. I think he's been an amazing campaigner on this. But I'll admit, I was slightly disappointed to hear him criticising the report before the report had been published. So that was slightly disappointing. I mean, what I will say is, look what we've done. Look what we've done since we went in government on day one. I mean, I've just reeled off so many things. We've been working so hard because this is such a fundamental issue for the general public. And we have banned bonuses. I can't stop what a private company is paying. But as I say, you know, these water companies, seriously, like, read the room. If they want to rebuild their relationship with the general public, which is at absolute rock bottom, then they seriously need to think about the message that they're sending out there.
I think the thing is, Emma Hardy, is people don't believe they do really want to rebuild the relationship. I think people feel at their core that the water companies are there for profit. And actually, to be fair, not under your government, it was sold to them that this was a money-making enterprise. So I know you say you can't go back and redress the past, but that's what people want. They want to see them pay properly. Because let's be honest, otherwise we're all going to pay in our bills.
Yeah, you know, I get it, Kate. I mean, it has been a complete shambles. It is a broken system. But as I say, I can't do much about what's happened in the past. What I can do is say that this government believes we need a revolution in the sector. We need root and branch reform. We're going to introduce new laws to make sure we have all of the powers that we want. This rebuilds on the work that we've done from day one. As I said, with resetting accountability, with literally rebuilding. And one of the great things about rebuilding, and I mention this because I think Ed might like this bit as well, is that rebuilding, yes, it's about improving the environment, but it's also about having jobs and opportunities in every part of the country. That £104 billion of investment is going everywhere. So that means jobs from everyone from Hull, where I'm from, all the way down to Plymouth as well, because we literally need to rebuild it. So we need at least 30,000 people to get out there and fix it.
So this has been a 30-year problem. It's going to take years to fix. You said if you renationalise, you'd be blighted for the whole Parliament. But you are going to be judged, you, Emma Hardy, Steve Reid and the government, in 3.5, 4 years' time at a general election. What is the measure which we can look at and say, that has happened and therefore they're on track, it's working? What's the thing we should judge you on?
Yeah, no, great question. So on Sunday, Steve Reid set out exactly what that measure will be. And he said in 5 years, we will halve the amount of pollution, sewage pollution and phosphorus entering our rivers, lakes and seas. And that's the measure on which we'll be judged. Now, of course, I'm not happy with reducing half the pollution and leaving half the pollution in. Clearly, that's not a good thing. But that is a staging post. If we get our decade of national renewal, if people re-elect a Labour government, then in the following 5 years, we can restore our rivers, lakes and seas to good environmental health. But that's our ambition for the next 5 years, to halve the sewage, halve the phosphorus, and then, as I say, re-elect us and we'll finish the job.
And we'll know in 3 months and 6 years' time whether you're on track or already behind. And so we look forward to holding you to account, Emma Hardy, in the coming weeks and months.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you for joining us today.
Good to speak to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.